I'm Sir Al Ainsley-Green, the Independent Children's Commissioner for England. This programme is about safeguarding vulnerable children. Every school will have children who require protection. So I've been to Castle Rock School in Leicestershire to see their new approach, a multi-agency forum for the protection of their children. I first met with Deputy Head Julia Patrick and I asked her what had led to the creation of this groundbreaking initiative.
We already had a lot of support in school for individual students, but sometimes the strategies that we have in school aren't sufficient and students need a little bit more. With the Children's Fund, we had support from transition mentors who worked very effectively with our students. We also have support from the Youth Inclusion Support Panel, YISP. And as well as that, we've got school nurse, counselling service and other services that would come into school. So we felt that we wanted to pull all this together.
Yes.
We wanted to target the support.
Yes.
And make sure that the right support was going to the right students. And also one child wasn't having perhaps 4 or 5 agencies,
yes,
whereas another one who was in desperate need wasn't able to have any.
Is the first step in this the identification of children who got these needs?
Yes.
How do you go about doing that?
I meet regularly with the pastoral team, so once a week we meet just to discuss students causing concern. So any students that we feel have that extra level of need, we may do a single agency referral. If that support still hasn't shown positive effect, we'll meet with the parents and we'll complete a common assessment framework.
Right. So the CAF is a very important part of this.
Yes, it's very important.
Do you think it's really transformed how you approach the problems?
It has, in the sense that it's very, very focused. It means that we're looking at the needs of the students,
right, okay,
as well as the positives of that student as
yes,
well. And because now with the agencies, we've been working together for 3 years now. We've got a lot of agencies that attend the forum, on average 12 agencies.
Gosh. Right.
So it's actually got to the stage where we all know what each other does, and once the CAF has been presented by the referring school, the referring agency, we almost look to each other to say, oh, well, that's yours and that's your case, because
right,
people know the work of other agencies.
Delivering the plan, having formulated it, and showing benefit is the proof of the pudding. How do you make sure the plan actually is delivering benefit?
After a meeting, the lead professional will contact the parents and say, this is the outcome of the meeting. I'm going to take on the role of making sure and monitoring that the agencies are doing their job.
Right.
And all agencies take on the role of lead professional. And I think initially they were probably a little bit reluctant to do this. They thought, it's adding more to our workload. But then they realised that they may be lead professional for one person, but for another, somebody else is doing that role. And we have a core team of social services, student support service, education welfare, police and health, who are there all day. And the other agencies come along at specific times,
right,
to when we're discussing that particular age range.
Right. I mean, there are specific issues, of course, of transitions, aren't there? Children starting school, children moving to secondary school, children leaving school.
Yeah.
Does this structure accommodate the transition ages?
Most definitely,
How do you cope with that?
Well, an example, here in Leicestershire, we're in 11 to 14 high schools and
yes,
then 14 to 16 or 14 to 18 upper schools.
Yes.
So it's enabled us to actually target those students that we've identified as being vulnerable here at a high school. The upper schools have already attended the meetings, they already know those students, and likewise we know the students that are coming up from Key Stage 2 to Key Stage 3.
What's the message you put across about this forum concept and its efficacy?
We've got all these agencies out there that really want to help. We all want the same outcome. We want the best for our young people. And by speaking and communicating together, we can offer the best support possible. Next, I met with 2 more forum members, Jane Melville of the Leicestershire Youth Offending Service and Jacinta Barnyard of Leicestershire Student Support Service, and asked first Jane how this forum helped her with young people at risk.
Well, the benefit for us is that we're able to identify them very early on, which means we can then intervene very early.
How do you identify them?
What we do is we look at various risk factors. So
yes,
obviously there are a number of risk factors that might predetermine a young person to get involved in youth offending.
Yes.
And things like disaffection with school,
yes,
family problems,
yes,
difficulties in the community where they live, relationships at home. So we'd, through the forum, be able to identify what those key risk factors are. And if those are risk factors that we may think might lead them to offend in the future, we'd then be able to identify them at that point. And we might do that through either a CAF assessment,
yes,
or through discussions where actually some of the risk factors might come up.
What's the real evidence this system works?
I think for us, what it means is we can get the people who can really support the child involved. And for us, the evidence is that in Leicestershire, we've got a reduction in the number of young people who enter the criminal justice system.
Okay.
And also we measure that whether or not the young people we work with go on to offend, and we've got really high success rates.
Many young people at risk may have learning difficulties or psychiatric or emotional problems. How do you cope with their difficulties?
I mean, I think that's where the multi-agency panel really comes into play, because rather than us as a single agency being able to support those young people, we can pull on resources where they would be more supported. The other thing I think is really positive is that we can be an advocate for young people as
Yes.
well. So actually, rather than looking at the symptom or the behaviour that we see in the young person, we can start digging underneath and saying, well, what is the reason for this behaviour? And if it is about, difficulties with special educational needs or learning difficulties or even mental health issues, we can actually start addressing those issues, which then ought to then have a knock-on effect on how they behave at school or engage with school.
Yeah. Jacinta, tell me about your involvement. What do you bring to the table?
I work with Leicestershire Student Support Service, which is actually the behaviour support service for Leicestershire. It involves in-school support as well as pupil referral units. The work that we do is to prevent permanent exclusions.
And how effective is this?
Well, the permanent exclusion figures have gone right down this year.
That's really very important, isn't it?
Decrease over the last 2 years, so
Right.
I think the proof is in that. Certainly schools are reporting much better service for students. They're getting much better response. They're asking for coaching from our staff to work with their own staff on the sorts of programmes we deliver. We get good feedback from parents and we get good feedback from pupils as well.
To teachers and head teachers watching this programme, what's the message you'd give them about this kind of work?
I think it's certainly worth putting in the time to get agencies together to give a joined up approach. It's certainly, it puts all the links in place. There's no missing links with this. It ensures a continuum of support for young people and their families.
One of Castle Rock's feeder schools is Broomleys Primary School, which benefits from the work of the Forum.
Well, I can think of a couple of children who were finding life quite difficult. They were displaying this perhaps through the behaviour in school, and when I talked with the parents about this, the behaviour was also being displayed at home. So we agreed that we would take the children's names to the Forum, and at the Forum 3 or 4 agencies all said, well, we know this about the children, we can put in this amount of support, and we appointed a lead professional, and over the next year those children received a lot of support. During that time it really gave them the opportunity to develop as children and brought them really back on track. The sorts of issues, the sorts of problems that children face can be there from the starts of their lives. The children might be involved in the Forum as young as 5 or 6.
Marilyn Kingett, assistant head teacher, attends the Forum for Broomleys.
I think the Every Child Matters agenda is five areas which seem quite easy when you just read them as bullet points in a document, but actually being able to make sure that you cater for all of the children in your school can be quite challenging, and this forum is a way of maybe accessing information for parents and for children who otherwise experience some difficulties in being able to achieve their potential. I think something that would help the multi-agency forum a lot is continued funding for some of the work to keep going on, and because we have younger children, one of our difficulties is as well that a lot of the professionals perhaps cater more specifically for slightly older children, so it would be great to see some more agencies out there that could support some of our younger children as well, so that the intervention could be even earlier.
Kath Brown is a family member who has benefited from the work of the Forum.
Well, I had to take my grandchildren in for nearly a year. A lot of problems, emotional problems as well. I had help from Mr. Pryor, also the school nurse. Social services were involved as well, and so were the police. I've never had to deal with anything like this before. At my age, I've been to start bringing children up again, you know. Things change and there's a lot more help now, I would say, than what there was, you know, years ago.
Finally, time to meet Dr. Charlie Palmer, who is Assistant Head of Pupil Support, Children and Young People Services at Leicestershire County Council. How has he supported the development of this new multi-agency forum?
Well, what I bring first of all is a local authority strategy that says that we must develop multi-agency working around the county.
What was it about this programme that made you feel it could be rolled out to other schools?
Well, the first thing that alerted us to this was the success that it was having in terms of reducing exclusions, improving attendance.
Right.
We could see that this was being a very successful initiative, but we were very concerned in the early days to make sure that what we produced was a model that would work right the way across the county.
Yes. Yeah.
We have 287 schools.
Yeah.
If every school had its own multi-agency forum, our staff would do nothing but attend meetings.
Yeah.
So we had to find the right way of making it work for all schools.
So how have we done that, Charlie?
The major initiative that's made a real difference has been to timetable particular groups of schools into a meeting half day, so that over the half day period every school knows that they can bring children to the table for discussion during a particular timetable slot.
But the administration and the actual organisation of the programme and the work plan takes time, effort and resource, doesn't it?
It does indeed. It takes all three of those, and we're using resources from the local area agreement to support the work, and we've got a plan now as we roll out to support particularly the administration and the chairing arrangements for these forums around the county.
Are you aware of this kind of approach being implemented elsewhere in the country or not?
Absolutely. The Every Child Matters agenda goes nationwide, and all local authorities are finding their own way through these difficulties. Our particular approach has been to work at it slowly, to work on the identity issues first, to nurture examples of good practice like this, the work that we're talking about now, and then to help to let structural solutions follow afterwards.
How can you encourage people to look at the change agenda and then take part in it?
Well, you know, what's really interesting about multi-agency working is that it is immensely more satisfying for staff to be able to work as a group and address a family's needs as a whole or a child's needs as a whole, and to think not in terms of their own service, but to think from the child's point of view or the family's point of view. And it's that deep satisfaction that comes from knowing that you're doing a job that is really appreciated by the family, that really brings benefit.
What's your recommendation to our new Secretary of State?
Let's have as much time as we can to let these changes really work. We've got a very exciting agenda with Every Child Matters. There's a lot of people very committed to do it. Give us a few years.
Protecting vulnerable children in schools is important. We have seen today how an innovative approach, bringing people together in a multi-agency way, can deliver real benefit and protect the children we're all concerned about.